Interactive Google Slides. What does that exactly mean? Let's find out here. We have a few examples to look at. And if you got access to this presentation, that is not really going to have much in it for you. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate. I will also share with you some pitfalls, bad examples, and also something that's very important to remember is to lock your document background. You'll have an image that you might put there. So here is a simple presentation. One slide, I went out and copied and pasted, and then I even think I copy and pasted the wrong poem with the wrong recording. But nevertheless, here's what it is. It's text on the screen, and if I have early readers, or if I have students who need guidance with reading, or if I simply just want to make this interactive for everyone, I can insert audio. So I go up here, I have already recorded this, and technically I found the recording online. So that's something to consider too. Got it from Learn Out Loud, where they have the poems already. And I actually got the one from the Road Less Traveled. So where I see the text on the screen says the road not taken. Well, if I go up to insert, I can choose audio. And this is a fairly new feature in Google Slides. They released it, then they pulled it back, and then they brought it back again. So any audio files that exist in my drive are going to show up. So I have voice notes from doing feedback to students. And here's this one that I grabbed from Robert Frost. Even though it's the wrong poem, I'll hit select. And then what it does, because this assignment happened to already be shared in Google Classroom, it says, hey, by the way, you need to share this with others. Now, this is not typical. You wouldn't have gotten this. It only happened because I did this activity earlier today. But down in the lower left corner is where the little speaker icon shows. And I've already done this. And so you can leave it down there in the corner, but that's kind of in my way. So I'm going to move it. And students then could click on it.
LearnOutLoud.com and Zods.com present The Road Less Traveled.
All right, so now I need to go back and go get the right poem to go with my audio. But you can see how this becomes interactive. The students would need to click the speaker, hit the play, and instead of just reading the text. Now let me ask out there, I'm going to clear off all of my nonverbal responses from before, where you guys gave me a thumbs up. Now go to your participants panel, if you don't mind, and give me, if you have done something like this already, can you give me a yes, a little green circle with a check? Oh, so Jennifer Hopkins has. Great. Anyone else out there? I know it takes some time to get there. So is Greg. Got it. And if the two of you who have answered so far, you can do it in the chat or you can unmute your mic. How have you used embedded audio to make it interactive? Was it poetry? Was it something else? So I'll give them a moment to respond. Okay, so Jennifer had a science lesson. So it wasn't poetry. And Greg has music that goes with a time period of history notes. Love it. Okay. If I look at my Google Slides settings over there on the right, I can decide how the audio is going to play back. Just does it start playing automatically? And probably not. I probably want the kids to have the option. This is an optional interactive feature. So that's it. That's a very basic interactive file. But what's very important, if this was a fresh new file I've never used in Google Classroom, it's not currently assigned, it's just brand new, made a new slide. And let me do that here. So brand new slide. Let's say I was going to make myself a spelling test. And they are going to type the word you hear. So they're going to click play and I'm going to insert my audio. So insert audio. And this time I might need to search. I already have a recording to spell the word jeans. So there in the right corner, it inserted it. That's not where I want it. So I'll move it, make the button bigger, and students would click this button.
Jeans. Teachers can wear jeans on Casual Friday.
Okay, so hopefully you all heard that too. I should have had my audio shared. That audio has not been shared out. If I go to Google Classroom and assign this, they would get the PowerPoint, the Google Slides file. They would get that. But when they click on this speaker icon, it would pop up a message saying, you must ask for permission. So if you are inserting your own audio files saved in Drive, you need to make sure that you go in, and that's what I'll do here. I'll go to Drive. I'll look for that file. So it was a jeans.mp3. I need to be sure that this audio file, when I click it once, that does let me select it, and these icons appear at the top. So when I click on the little head and shoulders with the plus, that means I'm going to share. So when I click on share, I can say, well, who's going to get this? Now, like I said, I've used this earlier today. And it says anyone on the internet with this link can view. All right, so it's already set up to share. You can also right click and pick share. That's another way to open up the settings here. So I already have mine set. Yours would probably say restricted. So one way to manage this so you don't have to do this for every audio file, make a folder. Every time you have audio, throw your items into that folder. You share the folder first, and all the items that are added later are going to inherit the share setting. So I'm not going through each one of those steps, but I hope that does make some sense to you. And that completes then my audio interactive slides file. So I'm going to clear out all of those responses who said, we had 2 people who said they do that. So here's another example of an interactive slides file. Now do keep in mind when students open these files to interact with them, they are not going to hit present. You are not going to hit present to use it either. You have to stay here in edit mode where you see the slide deck on the left. So here is a story, and this is actually a story for my daughter's lessons last spring when we went remote. And the teacher in Google Classroom handed out the YouTube video, and the teacher handed out a separate slides file with the story elements. And I thought, why can't we sandwich those together? And then our Google Classroom is a little simpler looking. It's cleaner. The parents, when they help younger learners, this was first grade, they open up the file, they'd see the title, they would logically know that they need to watch the video first, and then they would come down and work on the interactive part. So when you insert video, this can be video from your Screencastify. It could be videos you've stored in your Google Drive. Make sure, just like the audio, make sure those are also shared. But this one happens to be a YouTube video. So in Google Slides, I would go up to Insert, and I would click on Video, and I would get it either from my Drive, or I could, when I back up, get it from YouTube. I can even just search. And see if I find the right one. Probably not with that search, but if I have the exact link, I would just paste it. That would be the most concise way. And the instructions are right there on the slide. See, if I had just given the parents the link in Google Classroom to the video, I wouldn't have the ability to type anything to tell them what to do next. So doing it this way, they can follow the instructions and go on to the next slide. Now, what isn't done for the students here is, how does the teacher want us to respond? A text box could have been added, or students can be taught to add the text boxes themselves. So those are options. In my daughter's situation, they had iPads, and when you open up the mobile version of Google Classroom on a mobile device like an iPad, you have the ability to do a drawing tool. So all files would open up. It generates a PDF version, and then I'm able to interact. But I know that's not the case for most people. And you're also probably watching as I add text boxes here. It's not very clear either to my audience that that is already done for them. So if you add text boxes, my suggestion is to make sure that you give it a line, or also add text so that they know. Now, I don't want to have to do all that work over again, so I can click this first one and I can make copies of it. And now I did that fairly efficiently, pretty quick, and I'll talk to you about how I did that in a moment. So there we go, a little clearer and interactive. Now I want to pause again here and ask who in our group of the 14 of us, who here has embedded a video into their Google Slides presentation like this one shows, where they can consume written content and then they can play a video and then maybe respond. If you go to the participants panel, give me another yes, or if you've never done this, you can give me a no. That's fine by me. It doesn't mean that you need to do it. It's just I'm curious to kind of find out there. We don't have many votes yet. Now, if Greg does not mind, you use short clips from YouTube. Got it. Oh, and some of you are putting it in the chat too, so thank you. A couple no's there. It's something that you can do with Edpuzzle. So if you went in and learned about Edpuzzle, you might say, well, why would I do it here? It's the same thing. Well, not the same, because it doesn't pause the video. It doesn't track the students and whether they watched it or not. So it's kind of the dumbed down version of what Edpuzzle does. Edpuzzle definitely does this job much better. So we have we just have one person so far who has done this out of our group, at least in our responses. Another thing about YouTube videos, if you do find a very long recording and you only want a portion of it, I love that in Google Slides, you can click up here in the toolbar, Format Options, and what pops off to the side is your video and a thumbnail, a choice on how you want it to play. So the same deal that the audio had, but look at this. You can queue up the video. If you walk out of here and don't do interactive slides, you won't break my heart. If you walk out of here and at least learn, hey, I could queue up my videos and make slides of just videos I present to the class, I hope that you can use that in your everyday life. Because I watch all too many times teachers start the morning, they get all their videos up They all have a million tabs open like I do right now. And then they have all their videos queued. If you have to shut down your computer or if something happens, you've lost all of those temporary queued up videos. And also a benefit of embedding your videos right here inside of slides, it will take out the ads. So that's another reason why teachers queue up a video, because they have to skip the ad and hurry up and pause. And so I'm going to clear out our responses in our participants panel. And if anybody likes that idea, can you give me a thumbs up or a little clap? We have a little applause icon. So now, Greg, you're raising your hand. And I don't know if that means you want attention or if you're just picking that as your response icon. So we are getting applauses on our thumbnails. Some of you in our participants panel are giving me the thumbs up there too, and applauses. Good. Okay, so keep that in mind. Just even using Google Slides, put your videos in there so you can queue up the videos, and it will let you end at a certain time. So if this is an hour-long video, I can play it in 10-minute chunks. I would have this video in my slide 6 times, or in my presentation, to break that up. And I can check for understanding on a slide inserted in between. So thanks for that, folks. I'm going to clear out our responses. So another interactive example. I need to find out who all we have here, because our first examples weren't so specific to grade levels, but this one is. So in the chat, if you can find the chat on your screen, can you tell me what grades you teach? And subjects are great too. If you wrote algebra, I definitely know you're not a primary math teacher. So in the chat, let me know, what do you teach? So we do have a couple second grades, high school, 5th grade math and science, intervention at the primary, music, great, elementary music. So we are kind of all over the place. So I apologize. This one definitely is going to be a primary, but I'm going to go with it because we do have some primary level teachers in here, definitely some K1. In slides, one of the benefits when you're working in edit mode like this, and like I said, your kids will open your files like this to interact with them. I'm going to zoom out just a touch. Way too much. But what you can see when you zoom out, there we go. You can work off the edges of the page. So you are not limited to only having objects on the slide. So in this example, we have a math problem. We have objects to manipulate and drag and drop. So this makes a great exercise for students that they can manipulate. And every slide has the same thing staged and ready, and students now in this activity can make their own. And so here it even says, make your own story problem. Now, on this page, I can see my manipulatives. These guys I can grab. On the slide, I can only grab the boxes. I cannot move the pieces of the expression, the minus, the equals, or even the lines. Only the box where the text would show. And I can't move this background. So a lot of people, what they do, they build up a slide with all the itty bitty bits that they need, just like this. Then when it's nice and clean, they go ahead and honestly, I don't have to have these text boxes here yet, but what they do is they screenshot this picture. And you can do that whichever way. The snipping tool is great for Windows, and they have a new version, the Snip and Sketch is what they call it. I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to do my screen snipping tool, and I just took a photo of that. So now that's been saved quickly to my desktop. Some of you can just go copy paste, and then when you're ready, you're going to, and let me just do this on a new clean slides file. And I'm done with this one, so I'll go ahead and open, and I'm going to insert a background. This is the part that you'll want to remember. You don't want the kids to move it around or change it. So if I click on background, I have to choose an image. Where is it? Well, for me, it's up on my desktop. So I'll go grab my screenshot and drag and drop it on. If you have it saved in Drive, that's fine too. And then I'll just say done. Now this slide doesn't need any of those boxes. And here, when I took my screenshot, I happened to have the first box selected. So that's a bad screenshot. But I could come in, add fresh text boxes. So I'll cover that up, cover up my mistake. They can type here. They can type here. Let me get a new one. And you're building yourself basically what you would do at a smart board or interactive board. And now students can type in those boxes. Those are the only objects that can be manipulated. Now I'm going to pause there and ask if anyone has a question about how that was made. You can unmute your mic or type in the chat. So I will ask you guys a question rather than just give you the answer. How did I get all of these little fishies on here? Really easy and quick. Does anybody have a skill that they know? I'm just dragging them out so you can see how many I have. So if I wanted to make copies of this little clownfish really quickly, what do you think is the fastest way to do that? It's crickets out there. Let's see what we got. Cloner from Jennifer. And Jennifer, if you don't mind, like how would you, can you describe that a little more? Give me some details. Okay, so she writes in a chat, not sure, but yeah, in Smart Notebook, you have infinite cloner. So you're probably used to having a convenient tool like that, but we don't have that in Google Slides. So I am going to give you the answer. And here it is, folks. I have one little fishy. If I wanted to quickly copy him, I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, Control, and the letter D. Here it goes. Saving me time. I don't have to do copy, paste, because I'm staying right here on the same screen. Now, someone did the effort of stacking all the fish up nice and neat, but you don't have to, because Control D is also gonna, kind of step them off like that. Just as long as they're off on the edge of the page, you're good. Kids can drag and drop. So it's the closest thing we can do to having that infinite cloned or that sense of an infinite cloned object. So the Mac version is Command D, your PC version is Control plus the letter D, and you are duplicating. So cloner, yeah, She was on the right track. Now I'm looking at a different slides file. And if I was trying to build a whole interactive lesson, maybe there was a piece on language arts, there was a piece on math, I probably could not combine these two together. Can I get from the chat why these two cannot be put together? One's on math, it's a single page. One's on language arts, it's a single page. Is there anything about these pages you guys notice that does not match? I don't have anything in the chat yet. Oh, good. Well, Jennifer, you're keeping us alive out there. I think everybody else took a nap or is having a fire drill. So she is right. Different background. And not that it's like an ocean and that this is a picture of a worksheet, but she's on the right track here. And I will interpret that different background means it's a different layout. So some of these are landscape, right? This one is portrait. And a lot of your worksheets are going to come in portrait. Yes, so she's got the details. It's page setup. So if you did not know this, you can go into Google Slides, go to File, and pick Page Setup. Now, by default, it is going to be one of these standard and landscape shape oriented choices, but you go down to the word custom and most pages are going to be at 8.5 by 11. Make that your number. You can measure in inches or a few other measurements, but this is the one that will make most sense to you. And you can hit apply. Now I did a close number and there you have a portrait image. Now you don't want to do this after you've been working. I'll show you why. If I go to page setup under the file menu, and now I do this custom and I go for that size of a paper, whoops, I am going to stretch everything. So if I bring something in like this, make sure you have your orientation, your page setup taken care of first. The next step is you're going to come in and insert a background. So I went through that step quickly, but this time I'm going to bring in a different background. I have a picture of another item. Let me see where that is. Maybe it's in my Google Drive. And maybe not. I'm trying to think, because it was a worksheet. I think I'm going to be searching for the wrong one here. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to back out. But worksheets that are already a PDF are fine, but you're going to need to go get a snapshot of it. So I'm going to skip that I did not repeat the process. Sorry, folks, that I kind of crashed and burned on inserting an image. But we cannot, I'm going to answer a question in our chat. We cannot default to 8.5 by 11. So yeah, you can just make a blank slide like this, call it template, and then just do file, copy, make a copy every time. And that way your copy is already in the orientation you want, instead of having to go to file, setup, and change all those numbers. So that'd be a workaround. So this one already had a background in, and I failed on bringing in a fresh one. Let me ask, before I go working on this next example, who here has put a worksheet in like this? And it's okay if the orientation is landscape, but has anybody put in a worksheet into Google Slides in the background? So go to participants and click a yes. You can click a no. We'll see if we have anybody who's done this before. Okay, so A. Klein is answering no in our chat. Jessica and L. Mosier, no. All right. Now, if it truly was a simple fill in the blank, I'm going to steer you guys to use Kami. That's what you have Kami for. And that's really great for fill in the blanks, connecting lines. And so some of you who are newer to Google Slides, I want to show you really, it's more of that drag and drop type of interactivity we want to use here, because you can't do that in Kami as easily. So for those of you who responded, thank you. And some of you, hope you're still listening there. I'm going to go ahead and move forward to an example where it is a PDF, and I'm going to transfer this cut, which is a traditional cut and paste activity, into a digital format. So we see that if this was printed, we use scissors, and then we would paste them beside one another on a separate piece of paper. The electronic version of this, let me get to that, looks like this now. The picture started out portrait. I'm going to zoom in. There we go. But now the new version of this is landscape. So sometimes when you're trimming up original paper, you might have a difficult time getting the size right. But here's the idea. I am going to just grab a part of the picture. So you would do this with your snipping tool. And I'm going to move this up just a touch. I grab that and I get the top portion of my paper. So that's been snipped. I would go here to my presentation. Sorry for not clicking the right slide there. So it's just blank. You don't need any layout at all. It's all blank. And then you insert your image, whether you drag and drop or you go to the insert menu. So now I'm bringing in images. So first I showed insert audio. Then the second example was video. Now we're using images. So if I insert an image, that could have just been uploaded from my computer where I screen snipped it. And again, if I didn't say it, the Windows snipping tool, the newer version is Snip and Sketch. Very easy to just snip portions of worksheets that are electronic. So I do need to work on this a bit because they're talking about cutting, pasting, and a separate page. And those are not my instructions anymore. I have to update this, and then I'm going to get the pieces. So I could be very tempted to be lazy and come down here and snip just all these words, and then I'll show you the cheat. And I am, please do not do this. I am showing you a bad example. And that was not the tab I wanted to click. So let me fix that again. I came down and I just grabbed all the words. And then I thought, I don't have time. I'm just going to go to the edges of the page and paste that in. Oops, my arrow tool needs selected. So here's my little screenshot, right? You could be tempted to crop and come in and say, all right, I just want this word. It looks good. I can bring it in again and start cropping. And the crop tool is right here. And you can say, well, Rebecca, if you don't want us to do this, why are you showing us? I want to show you because it seems like an easy solution for us as the person building the activity. But I had experience with my daughter last school year, and it was a nightmare. So what looks good on the surface is not very useful to the students. And here's why. So if a student grabs one of these and they're going to drag, and that's the new instructions, they're going to drag and they're going to drop it. The problem with this is kids are all too often double click. So if they do that and they double click, it reveals all the other words that you had snipped or kind of cropped out. Same thing with this one. So please do not try to cut corners with this one. And you might say, this is labor intensive. This is going to take work. And yeah, it's a lot of screenshotting. I would say you could save some time and bring them all to your slides page. I'm okay with that. Bring them all here, but that way you don't have to flip flop in between windows. Flipping here to where the word is, flipping here to where your slides file is. If you did one large snip, then I could continue to use my snipping tool and grab the one-offs. And this is a much nicer way to do this. I'm not flipping between screens and I'm still getting the individual snips. So I hope that came across okay to everybody, clear enough. This is the exact example my daughter used. And we were good for a while. We were dragging and dropping. And then she double clicked on something. And I'm like, what is going on with your screen? And it's because the teacher did one big snip and then she was just cropping. And it was so confusing to a first grader. And it's this way throughout the whole thing. So it was a big problem. Now I see I only have 1 more minute. So I want to show you one other pitfall to avoid. So I have gone through the steps to demonstrate how you would do the snippings and how you would pull in drag and drop objects. And you do know, make sure that background object is an image and that you insert it as the background. So to close, I'm going to ask out there, those of you who are still with me, do you see an issue with this activity? Students are asked to measure. They are going to take these tiles over here and they're going to bring them over to this character and measure. Now that I have moved tiles over to measure this alien, does anybody see the problem with this? Oh, good. Someone sees it right away. Yes, the tiles, they blend together and they can't see the outlines. Thank you. I got 2 of you answering. So it was very difficult to count because kids don't know where the borders of these are. Yeah, and good in the chat, you've put in exactly what we need. Tiles need a border. So Google Slides has the ability for you to make your own manipulatives, counters, and you can use the shapes of any that you choose. If you're going to do something that's going to line up like this and start to blend, look at this. You guys have border weights and lines. So I need to change a different border color. So let's go with something really obvious, a really heavy line. There we go. And so now the student can see that object. I'll end with this, and I'm not going to ask you, I'll just show you. This rocket was very hard for us to measure. And when I click on it, you'll see why. It doesn't matter if this is a primary level activity, all of this applies to K-12. Make sure you insert your objects in the order you need them to be used. And sometimes we're kind of afterthought, we've put in, maybe I changed that, it wasn't a rocket and it was a different spaceship. and then I put the rocket in later. Well, now the rocket is in front of the tiles in the order of all the objects, plus the teacher rotated it. So hard as I might try to grab these tiles, I can't. I can only grab the top and the bottom because this rocket interferes. So make sure you order, and I'm going to send that guy all the way to the back. So now a teacher, is understanding, hey, the order of the objects you put in really matter. So I'm sorry, I've gone over 2 minutes time. I'm going to stop our recording, and I hope I've shown you a few ways that you can use Google Slides to be interactive with your students.